Hello, Culture Matters podcast. Buckle up. Before I introduce you to our guest, here's a quote just for this episode. Every person takes the limits of their own field of vision for the limits of the world. Arthur Schopenhauer. Our guest today, a friend of the Culture Matters podcast. If you haven't heard, Clear the Lens, episode 810 on the Culture Matters podcast. Please visit that episode after this show. Our guest today, Demetri Stakias, runs the Cold Air Company, the host of the Relief podcast. As a guest myself on the show, as far as this recording, the longest episode in the history of the show. Very proud of that. Demetri uncovers people's greatness through listening, truth, giving not only the audience relief, but his guests too. He's a leader in the cold air space. If you don't understand what that is, you got to go to the coldaircompany.com. And he helps people that need an ear and a heart and someone to be there for them as it relates to real estate and their needs. Demetri is a bibliophile, a lover of books. If you're watching this on video, you see right behind him some great books that I see. Some I've read that I love. Even right behind him as we record this show. Thank you so much for coming on the Culture Matters podcast again, Demetri. I believe you also did a 30 Days of Thought in Friends. I was on one of the excerpts. I think it was episode 798. That was awesome too. So if you're listening to this show, go subscribe to the Relief podcast. And all right, we'll see you next time on the Culture Matters podcast.
Enough said. Well, I can't top that. Well, thank you, Jay. I mean, it's been just a few hours, and again, thank you for breaking the record on my show for the long, not just longest, but most in-depth episode to date. Um, I feel like you are a nexus to people's full potential, and a lot of times people need, as you mentioned yesterday, guidance in terms of getting there, right? And but a lot of times, there's wolves in sheep's clothing. A lot of times people will say exactly what you need to hear at the right time and just to grab some money, or a long contract that it's hard to get out of. How would you go about vetting a decent mentor to make sure that it makes sense to work with them?
Are there, well, it makes me think of Charlie Munger, that Jacoby quote, invert, always invert. So as someone that has experience in it yourself, are there red flags that if you were to list the red flags for us and then you were to list the green flags, what would the red flags be first? Like one, two, three, the first thing to pop in mind. And then I'll share you mine if I think that they're different.
Do you want me to assess you?
No, the red flags, because you've retained a lot of
Sure.
helpers over the years,
Oh
haven't
yeah,
you?
yeah. No, red flag. Red flag is when the story goes too long. Very long story. When we're in like a lot of times the trades get to the point, please, to just sum it up and let's move on. Secondly, if you're not on time and there's no like call ahead of time, there's no valid reason, and this happens more than once. So now you're breaking that fourth agreement of not being impeccable with your word. Um, and third of all, you know, that they're not willing to share anybody that they've worked with. That they're like they say, oh, there's privacy, oh, there's these things in place, and I can't even give you a website or something that has their name or even a testimonial quote. So you have to sit there and say, well, I don't believe you. So if you don't believe that person, you might deny yourself that blessing of their lessons, but they think that by sharing a happy customer, you're going to mine them for data or contact them too much when all I would want to know is this a good person to work with? And I don't
Mm.
have to force a relationship with a past customer.
Mm.
At least that's my feeling. And in my past, I've overinvested sometimes in coaches for hopes and dreams, for hoping in something that wasn't really there.
I will answer you in this is how I'll answer you. I think that I want someone what that knows what that knows what I don't know if I can say it the right way. They know what drives them enough to know that they're dangerous. If they don't, if they aren't, if they don't own that, like, you know, there's like, I guess, like, yeah, I definitely want someone that care. I think is an under. I want someone to care.
To truly hear you, right? And I think like the more this new line that I think is great to use in anyone's relationship is when somebody wants to tell you something, you say, "Do you want me to help you, hear you, or hug you?" And that simple little statement opens up so many doors where they're like, "I just want you to hear me." So you don't have to fix any, because as guys, we want to fix things. We're problem solvers, and we know it makes sense, full logic and full ration to solve a problem when it exists and put out a fire. But someone's like, no, no, let that burn. And you're like, okay, or give me a hug, or be empathetic, whatever that means. And I'm like, that could save a lot of money in therapy or save a lot of relationships and divorce. And again, having gone through that, I'm like, if I was more attentive, if I asked more of these simple little questions without needing to be right, needing to win an argument, it would, I'm all about de-escalating tension. I mean, we all know how to win an argument, but they're typically shallow victories.
Mm. Why? Why are they shallow?
Who are you winning it for? I mean, it's like it's an audience of one. Like what, your self-pride? I mean, pride before the fall, right? So, it's part of that ego, like trauma bond or something. Um, that we feel like, oh, look what I've done. Look, I'm like, so what? Like, I'm
Mm.
not even on Facebook and Instagram. I feel free. Like I
When did you
actually it happened.
leave that?
I didn't leave it. It was done for me. I had an assistant who didn't follow direction and posted from my personal account. So at the moment, I'm suspended from these places. And I feel free. The first week I felt like, oh my gosh, I'm off the reservation. I'm missing out on things. Then I'm like, but I have nothing to compare. My comparisons are yesterday's performance.
Um, how long has it been?
I would say about 3 weeks now.
And if you were to describe is there a physiological difference? Is
Yes,
or is it more psychological or a combination of the two?
I would say, okay, so from a psychological standpoint, I would say less anxiety because then there's this like pressure to post and have certain types of reels, and maybe your peers are posting consistently and maybe you're not. So then this competitive aspect of you comes out and says, well, I got to do this. And then you're like, but what for? And the same thing with Facebook. If I have to check in every day, I have to send condolences, likes, congratulations, a whole series of things. But if I'm not in there, can't blame me. I'm not in. I'm off the reservation. When I come back, it's on other platforms, right? It's this platform, it's TikTok, it's LinkedIn. I literally prayed for fewer distractions in my life, and then later that day, two of them fell off. So
Mm.
I gained like 2 hours a day. And I thought sometimes that was good networking. I have bought real estate deals from that. But some of these places have become low vibrational.
What do you mean by that? Where does that what do you mean by that? And where is this insight coming from?
Well, it's this idea of this look at me. Like speaking from a filtered lens. Like we talked about clearing the lens. Like imagine putting all these filters on there, especially when, I mean, I'm not saying all over the board, but when someone sits there and says, I have the best wife, I have the best girlfriend, she's in the whole world. And I'm like, well, why do you guys say that all the time? Why is that got to be a weekly put? What are you covering up for? Right. And, undercovering people's true motives. I'm like, do I need to do that? Do I need to microanalyze everything? Or can I just celebrate someone's success? And that's enough.
Mm,
Can I be there to give them a hug if they're sad? Can I be a friend and try to reach out if something's really bad? Sure. But at some point, I'm not putting my own oxygen mask on.
mm.
And as a reformed people pleaser, oh, I would consume hours with, oh, they're there, and giving from a broken or empty cup. And that's not serving anyone. It's false service.
How would you say that this I want to call it capability to see what's unseen or to see what is unlikely observable in the majority? How has that been beneficial when it relates to cold air?
But you know what it is? It's getting right to the point, right? So right now, we're entering a season of change, right? We're in September, right? You might need the air conditioner on for maybe a couple more times, a few hours a day, but pretty much you're thinking, when am I going to turn the heat on? And in some households, given, increasing cost of all utilities, you know, it, you might not turn it on until November 1st. And that might be an arbitrary deadline, or that might come to October if we have a cold snap. And, if you have an older heater, right, typically they were installed decades ago at 80% efficiency. So 20% of heat just goes away and you pay for that. Well, new systems are at 96%. And, where you are in Florida, you might put it on once or twice a year. Like if it's really cold in the winter, right? You know what I mean? Like it's not even a thought, it's an afterthought. Um, but here, it's kind of essential. And there's gas and there's electric. And the whole point is, are you selling someone the right system?
Hmm.
I think this is where I think, maybe we can cover the field of family owned businesses versus private equity owned home service companies. Because again, I'm not against people growing companies, but serve the customer first, serve their needs first, feel where they're coming from. When the person calls me and says, in the middle of the summer and it's 8 o'clock and I'm tired, oh, grandpa has asthma, he needs air conditioning. I'm going to be there at 10 o'clock. There's no excuses. Why? Because that's how I grew up.
Wow.
You get a phone call Sunday morning, it's time for church. Oh, the call comes in, the walk-in box is down, air conditioning down. Okay, well, people are expected to come to that restaurant. You're going to stop everything, you're going to go there. God will understand. Right? Like, you take the call. Why? Because no matter how good you are and how great a friend you are, if you're not there almost instantly in a time of need, you're not really a friend. You're kind of a good guy.
Wow.
And you don't call the good guy, but you call the person who shows up in an instant. So we're not where we did wrong, but our network of friends and family and, passing it along is nice, but it only grows to a certain point. So I had to go hard and rebrand. And I bought phone numbers for both companies and I wrote it into the company. And I would love
Hmm.
your perspective on how, like, how to get more known. Because a lot of times people just talk and they're, no one's listening.
I want to ask something we about core values
Hmm.
because and this ties into where I think I could attempt to answer the question of being known. Um, but core values, what were the values that you were modeled when you were growing? Because this you said generation two business, family business.
Yeah.
So what were the core values that you experienced growing up
Well, I would, so
in
I,
this business?
I like the ones that I first started for, like, relief as an acronym. And the R being restoring community. So then would that be giving heavily to church in terms of never always fixing equipment, never sharing a bill, Always being of service to the community. I'm on the board of two nonprofits. It's not even something I tout online. It's something I just share so that others can kind of do the same. That's that's how we grew up. As I touched on briefly yesterday, philotimo, an ancient Greek concept of selfless giving, where you're not giving for the tax write-off, you're not giving for the connection, but at some point it does build connections. Um, and then the second one being the E, like I want to elevate the trades. I want everyone to get better. I don't want to just say, okay, I'm on top of the mountain, everyone else can burn. Like I want to take good people with me on the rise to the top so that there's more trust and we can all make more money. Um, one thing that hurts in like home services and in real estate is the trust factor. So
Mm.
people are denying themselves heat right away because they don't know if that person they hire is going to run away with their deposit or if they're going to get the job done timely, and now you're stuck. Um, a lot of times I'm the backup contractor because somebody else didn't show up.
Really?
There's service agreements in place. Great. I don't even need a sales script. Like I used to study sales scripts and I can't figure out the Sandler thing. I can't figure out how Bradley did it. I can't, well, I'm not them. Right. So I just go right to it and say, okay, when that person doesn't show up, who do you call? Oh, I
Mm.
don't know. I say, well, call us. Here's my number, 321 Cold Air. Right. I mean, you integrate these things into yourself, but then you have to toot your horn more often. And see, that's something I lack, is because I feel like that's prideful to go out there and say, hey, we're kind of good at what we do.
What's the L?
The L, oh, the leading by example.
How do
So
you do that?
so when I show up on the job, right, and I can't always delegate by phone and say, okay, you got to go there at that time and do the thing. No, I'm going to go there with you. I'm going to move the equipment. I'm going to coordinate how we want things. And then at some point, are you good? Yes. We'll check in with anything that's wrong, and I want you to send me a pic. So that level of accountability, but not condescension. Because I noticed that a lot in the trades with general contractors, whether they show up, whether they feel like it's their work when they never put a hand in there, move a bag of cement, or even, buy someone lunch. Like you got to have kindness, you got to have generosity and hospitality, and you're going to make even greater margin because you'll have repeat business. A lot of people think it's like a hit and run life, and sure, that hustler mindset gets you somewhere, but they all go broke. They all go down in flames. I've seen it on Facebook many times that people do share those bloody tracks all the time, and it's not
Mm.
pleasant. It's a cautionary lesson. The
What?
next one is I. So integrity, right? So when you share a price for a job, there's times when, gosh, my costs go up during the job. And sometimes I say, look, my costs went up and I can eat this much of the cost, but can you eat some of that? And if they really say no, I'm not going to argue. I'm not going to argue too much. I'm going to move on to the next job, but then be more reluctant to answer the call next time. To say, look, I'd be happy to work with you, but you can't squeeze me too hard on the margin, telling me there's five other jobs behind it. So anyhow, um, when looking at like what's the next thing to do, it's to exude positivity, right? Have some humor, right? Make them feel welcome. You're an expert at that. Like in these social crowds, in the networking circles, like you see the fellow shy person in the room and say, instead of you guys being wallflowers with all your beautiful potential and talents, why not go out there and cross pollinate, right? Make this garden more vibrant by talking to each other.
Mm.
And you might find collaborations, you might find a friend, you might find your next guest on the show. I mean, the way you just introduced me, John Duffin, and I forget the other guy's name right now, but who he was also the former Deloitte consultant. And you're like, y'all have podcasts, talk to each other, and then you walked off, and then we all exchanged cards and information, and it felt more vibrant as opposed to I got to be here for 2 hours and I don't know what to do. Right. So
Yeah.
so the last one, the F,
Mm. Huh.
is most people think the F means go fly a kite, but for me it's for me it's too
Who's thinking that?
I don't know everybody.
I
I mean,
think
you're
it's
from Philly.
funny. Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know. You're a little
Every
removed from Philly,
it's
but that
Philly. That's
that's
funny.
that comes with your salted pretzel. So so finding deals for investors on the one thing, but it's faith. It's being driven by a strong belief system that, God's in charge. I can't solve everything, but sometimes I can hold space and listen to you, right? Because maybe sometimes I can just diagnose your problem over the phone and not have to take any money from you. And you're like, well, why would you do that when you can make $200 on a service call? And like, that's a little, it's not that it's dishonest, but like, why do it? Why nickel and dime people when,
Hmm.
you're the reliable person? And when, you're reminding someone that you're reliable, and maybe you follow up with some marketing. Again, these are the things I'm growing into. They'll remember you when the equipment fails, and they won't
Hmm.
maybe call the cheapest person in town because perhaps the cheapest person in town doesn't, puts the cheapest Chinese unit. And again, they're all these coils and things are pretty much made in China, but the new standards are evolving. I'm not even sure if you're aware of this, but there's propane in new air conditioners. Like it's mandated. Like
Oh,
I went
what
to
does that mean?
so so over time we had different refrigerants. Basically, refrigerants run the condensation program through the evaporators, the compressors, and meaning drawing out the hot air from your home and bringing it outside, right? Through a system and a cycle that continues as long as the gas is in place. But the EPA, the Green New Energy deal, forced changes in the system. And I've tried to be an advocate, but I get ignored with the Senate's office. And I don't know how to be a public change agent. But if I could have the ear of the president, I would say, like, sir, can we go back to the standards where, we don't have to throw out all our air conditioners? Because in about a year or two, everyone's unit has to be changed.
Whoa.
And I was at an event in Austin a couple of years ago. The head of Dalkin, one of the largest companies, he said in the future, if you needed like a little bit of charge of freon or refrigerant in your system, it could cost $1,000, or it might have cost 250 or 300 before. Not because you're in a nice neighborhood, but because that's how things cost. There's artificial supply constraints, and again, it's going to push revenue up for basically everybody in the service business, but we hurt for the customer. We actually feel their pain. Like, why, I did work for a nonprofit this summer and I put in the older 410 gas. A lot of the newer companies would sit there and say, hey, let's sell you new units. You need new units. And you know what I told Mr. Beckett from the Beckett Center? I said, that money needs to go into the program. He says, exactly.
Hmm.
Right. So how many people would say that when it could cost them 20 grand or 50 grand or 100? They're not going to do that. It's bad business. But I'm thinking like, hey, what's being a good, Christian? What's being a good person of faith? How would I want to be treated if I'm the nonprofit? If I'm just trying to serve a mission and my equipment needs a little help, and instead of a Band-Aid, you're selling me, kidney transplant. Like these things are severe things, and people have to be bottom line focused, that wary of increasing costs. Um, but you have to share that we're kind of in this together. But from a regulatory standpoint, things are changing, things are evolving, and the fact that there are leak sensors. I just was told this last week by an industry insider. It's kind of scary. So your equipment would stop for an hour, until maybe the leak goes away, and then it'll start over again. And if it keeps leaking, then it won't continue. Because if there's a little bit of an electrode charge, something might catch fire. This isn't right. This goes back to when Obama said, "Hey, too many people have air conditioning," and that was a joke. People laughed and said, "What's wrong with you?" But you're also speaking from both sides of your mouth, from Martha's Vineyard. So I don't mean to go political here, but I want to point blame where it's due. And I think some of these laws were passed during Trump's time too, like in terms of moving things along, because planned obsolescence is part of life. We get it with computers, with everything. But when you're outlawing gasoline, you're literally forcing people into electric cars.
What percentage of the population is impacted by your trade?
Everybody who needs comfort and relief, anyone who gets cold and hot and can't do it themselves. I mean, sure you can watch YouTube videos, and I encourage people if you're handy and mechanical, go for it. Try to save money. Sometimes we've helped and mentored other people get into this business. Some people, especially Greeks, they think restaurants is the only answer because you grow
Mm.
up in it and it somehow made money. Well, it did, but now the competitive landscape is wide. The regulatory things. I mean, here in Philly, they'll write up a ticket just because it makes them look like they're doing their job, regardless of if there's compliance issue or not. Just otherwise it looks like they're just all friends and they're not showing up. So people have to deal with all kinds of things that could impede their business. Here we had the COVID restrictions, obviously. We're almost forgetting about that stuff back then. But I had to make a fake ID to get around town. I didn't have it
How
back then in college, but I had it as a grown up.
how did your father get in the business?
So my dad, this is a great story. So 15 years old, he's in a family farm in the town of Gamboskia. So where the Genovese set up these forts and castles to protect the citrus trees in the 1500s. One day this man's walking by and he tells my grandma, Maria, said, "Hey, your son should go to this trade school. And tomorrow is the deadline to like for the application." And at the time he's like 15 and he's just like, mixing up cement and on the farm and doing tasks here and there. But he's also playing with like batteries and radios and wires. So he likes to tinker with things. And he goes to school. Within a year, not only did he finish school, he's wiring up the village. And they
Wow.
didn't even have electricity. As a teenager, he's like running, and then he's the supervisor. He runs the 20 people crew and sleeps on a chest of dynamite because they had to blow up mountains to run new power lines. And in the middle of the night, some of his team members would try to steal the dynamite and blow up fish and get fish or something. But so there are all these games, and then he rode around the mountains and had all kinds of girlfriends. And I don't have any half siblings, thankfully, but but everything was done under proper insulation. Let's call it that way. Well, you gotta stay insulated, or else you electrocute yourself. So, anyway, at the age of 22, he comes to America with my grandparents and aunt because my aunt met her husband and they all moved here. He worked for himself and for a company that's still around, Strauss Engineering. Um, and he built a business based on helping people and serving people. And he didn't get trained in HVAC, self-taught.
Wow.
Self-taught. But then, and you can learn a lot of things. He's happy to learn. But like when you keep changing the standard, even a guy who, again, still at it at 76, is scared that this new stuff, if we don't do it right, it's not going to work. And when I talk on these forums where private equity owners are all over the place, I say, I'm concerned about this propane stuff. It's mildly flammable from the words of the equipment manufacturer. Their answer, double your liability coverage. Tell me from a value standpoint, what's bent there?
What could that mean for the consumer?
More harm,
Hmm.
less
What's
certainty.
the impetus behind the propane? Something macro, like some type of macro agenda
Well,
for
I would think it's
for
the
a
green
goal,
energy.
for a
I think it's
goal.
the green energy deal. I mean, you can go down all kinds of rabbit holes and go further.
Okay, let me make sure I follow this then. There are macro topics that are up for and in debate. There are
So let me go into that.
there
So
the things could fall on the consumer, but
yes,
but because of that, costs are going up. And is that more attractive than to the capital markets because they can make more money ultimately? You're saying,
certainly,
hey,
certainly, yes,
from a core value standpoint, from a relief standpoint, our organization, which is focused on the customer, Peter Drucker said, the purpose of a business is to create and keep a customer. So the teleology of a business is rooted in the customer journey. That the purpose of a business is rooted in you're saying from your company standpoint, you're You don't, the customer comes above the money.
Yes.
Okay, if you can
Yes,
go
we
on.
serve, we serve the customer first, customer's family, especially if it's repeat business. And, in my case, you go to church with these people, you go to their funerals, like, their kids, like, I mean? Like, you know each other. And even if you're not a customer anymore, you're seeing them at a festival and you're greeting them, or you buy each other food or dessert or something where there's kindness, right? And compassion. And it goes beyond the transaction, right? Regardless of the size of the transaction, right? There's no like, oh, I treat you better because you're a bigger customer. No, I treat you the same. If I see someone at the airport and they're my father's customer, hello, sir. Hello, man. Hi, how are you? Oh, how's your day? Like, you're not going to ignore them. Like that little bit of kindness, it keeps you front of memory as opposed to just an afterthought when you need something.
Mm.
So people aren't kind of investing in their relationship. I mean, you talk about it a lot in your work that the importance of maintaining relationships. It's pivotal. It's what's going to save you. I mean, I don't, if you've had David Meltzer on your show, but I asked him once, I'm like, when you lost it all, if you didn't have these two or three key people in your corner, you wouldn't be where you are. He says, exactly. Key people that you could call if you're stranded in the desert and you're like, I need to get my life back on track. They will help you get there.
Mm.
I mean, I don't know if you can count on me on one of those people, but I have the relief line. It'd be easy to remember if you ever lose it. And we didn't include that phone number yet, but if anyone needs
What,
help
yeah,
with
what is it?
they're going through, the 305 for relief. It used to be a Miami cannabis dispensary number, and I guess they gave it up. But I picked it up, and for the first few months, if I was in that business, I probably would have made more money. But I turned business away.
So the it's heating, it's air conditioning,
Yes.
and in the greater Philadelphia area.
Yeah, yeah. So Philadelphia, the city, the suburbs, South Jersey. But we've gone to Delaware on I mean, we've even serviced boats in Connecticut. Like I'm not saying it's something we want to do every day, but if someone's in need and nobody else shows up, we do. So that's like, I'm not saying it's competitive, it's just our standard that we live by. That
Hmm.
you don't want to leave somebody in the ditch if they need you and they don't really have other options. So because
And
if
so what year did your father start?
in 72, as soon as he got here, he started working for different restaurants down Frankfurt Avenue, areas that you wouldn't feel comfortable walking in anymore. But back then, that was all, commuters, people, taking the L down to the city to go there or go to all these different diners, right? They used to all be Greek owned. Now they're kind of Turkish owned. And we still have some of we have Turkish customers. We can work across culture and belief structures. They're not as warm as Greeks, but they do. Everyone does solid business, right? And serving their customers and keeping their salad bars clean and making sure the equipment is in good working order. All that's important because food safety is paramount. If someone gets sick once at a restaurant, you're never going to go back there, and then you're going to tell all your friends that you got sick there. Like it's catastrophic for a business.
What are some of the what are some things happening in your industry that you say, that's not my position, this is the way it should be done? That you could hold your flag and say, this is what we stand for, this is who we are, because you asked about the marketing. So my
Mhm.
question to you would be, what's going on in your industry and what do you see differently and what do you stand for?
I stand for service instead of just replacements. So if someone needs just a capacitor or a light part, you're going to sell it for a modest fee. Not again, I'm not going to name names, but I've gone to certain trainings and it's like $800 when it could be three. And you're hosing people down because they need it. Oh, if you don't get this, you don't get cold air. Well, yeah, you're selling the pain pretty hard. I get it. I've gone to all those trainers. I see how you can turn up the heat and make someone feel uncomfortable and then close more deals and make more money and high five each other and have drinks. I'm not in that crowd. But
Is
again,
that the culture of the space?
it kind of is, at least the new generation rising up. But the people, the old timers, and I guess if you cross 40, you're considered an old head now. Well, as a fellow old head, you want to be honorable to people. I want to stay in this business 3, 4, 5 decades if necessary. Again,
Where's the inflation coming from? The price inflation. General, yeah, what
it's this
that's
idea.
interesting. That's
Well, yeah, you have to
interesting.
remember these companies have fixed costs, right? If they're owned by private equity firms, they have profit margins to maintain, and you got to kick things up to corporates to maintain the spreadsheets and everyone being happy. Then you have marketing budgets, fancy trucks, people with nice jerseys, and you're paying people sometimes to sit on the bench, right? If they're full-time employees. Sometimes I hire subcontractors for select projects.
Is it because the industry has a lot of people like your father who have been in it a long time that are instantiated in the communities, and so they wouldn't increase the prices, but some third party that just looked at the math would say, "Oh, well, my God, there's so much opportunity here." Is
Well,
that happening in mass?
I think well, okay, from a value standpoint, values the service too low, like feeling so much hurt for the customer that you end up hurting, like if you charge too little. Like I've had other Greek people tell him, hey, just bump up your prices so they move up a little bit. But this idea of, like, let's say I don't know, you replace an outlet that's frayed on someone's Ben Marine. Now some service company could charge $300 for it. He didn't want to charge anything. And the guy threw him $100. Like, so you're doing people favors, right? You're showing that you're
But that might be under in that might be okay. When your plumber wants to make the money of a stockbroker, the culture, something's wrong with the culture.
okay, there we go.
Like, so I make this a philosophical, like, about our society. When if my plumber wants to make more money than the investment banker, because they have different value systems of how they view the world. That's why I became an investment banker, to make a lot of money. I became a plumber because I enjoy serving people, and I work with my hands, and I understand, like, there's I would argue it's, it's not to make a lot, or I'm in the service, right? The service professions, the, I value service. I
Oh,
value others,
absolutely.
and I'm not making a value judgment on who's better than the other or something. That each person's profession reflects what they value.
Oh, yeah.
All professions, how could all professions value money as the number one idol? That would reflect something wrong with the society.
Well, I want to credit one company that stands out, and that you can reference some of my episodes or even speak to the company on their core values and how it's influenced the culture of Delphi Plumbing out of Brooklyn, New York. So that's also another Demetri, son of an immigrant. His name is Jim. Jim's still at it. Jim shows up to the office every day in a white shirt and a tie. Again, they're both master plumbers, raised themselves up. Son didn't get the job, didn't always get along with dad, but now they built a strong company together. So to me, that's inspiring. And I had a series of interviews with those people to help them on their way. And then they, go harder on the culture, go harder on the core values. Say, what does it mean to be a team member here? What do we expect from you? What do we give to you? When they go out to Gino's, the Italian restaurant, open since the 40s, everyone's like family, not just because of the food, but because of how much fun people are having with each other. High expectations, lots of accountability, good training, and celebrating people's success when they have it. So, like, and being real when people need some guidance when they've made a mistake somewhere. You're not going to want to fail someone when they love you so much. When they celebrate you on LinkedIn on a regular basis, that they love having you. So, like, I see that, and I said more companies need to be like that. So it's something I want to aspire to grow into, and encourage others as well.
How so, yeah, what's the path to growth, maintaining a service customer first orientation, and while still having the margins, the possibility to attract the talent necessary to compete with some of these investment backed companies?
Certainly, you said you consolidated really well. Um, the larger companies talking the words roll up, buying it from retired service owners who don't have their systems and processes in place, and then mining their databases for more money. But then where's the heart? Where's the care? Where's the compassion? Where's that human, right? If it's some interchangeable person in their 20s who's here for a year and then gone, I don't know. I mean, you could text me ahead of time that somebody's coming to my house, but are they going to be kind? Are they going to smile? Are they going to say good morning, good afternoon, and my pleasure? Or are they going to say no problem? Like, are people
Mm.
taught how to serve wealth up and down the system, or is it just get the job done and get in the truck and go? Like, that kind of brute blunt force is not going to work anymore. And that's why a lot of people with great talent aren't working consistently
Mm.
because they don't have people skills. They have job skills. They're experts at what they're doing, but they're grunts. They're mean. If you try to talk to them for more incentive, they'll definitely tell you to fly a kite. Like that those aren't pleasant folks, and they're chronically unemployed and bitter. So you have to attract bright lights, or at least encourage people to smile more often, be pleasant, and cheerful, and feel that customer's pain. Like oh crap, like your system broke. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Not oh, there's money in it for me. Like that's kind of sadistic, but that's the feel of a lot of people right now.
Wow. Oh man. So
Yes.
if can anyone get involved in the trade, and if
Yeah,
so, then how? And yeah.
I encourage people to get in the trade. So I mean, I'm not sure if you know the story of the school. I grew up holding my mother's tool bag. I learned basically a lot of construction and HVAC from him directly and from my own like reading books. But then at the age of 35, I went full time to Orleans Tech, a school off Red Line in the Boulevard. It was originally founded by Jewish people in the 50s because they weren't allowed to go to trade schools with everyone else. So then they started their own trade school and then let everyone study there. So there'd be kids from all over the region, a lot of times from North Philly, some people who maybe used to have gang activity because some of them were in class. They clean up their act and they study something. Now you have a job skill and it never leaves you. You know what I mean? Like
Mm.
that's always something that regardless of where you work for, as long as you're kind, honest, and diligent, you can do a good job. You got work, and sometimes people create work for themselves by either damaging equipment or intentionally causing leaks. But the one thing I don't want is a callback. I want you to call me back for something else that you need. I want you to call me back with a referral, right? Like I want you to call me back and say, how you doing? Um, that level of kindness is, I think, what what fills my cup. And I think it inspires others to, every time the name comes up, it's pleasant thoughts that this person came through. They did a great job. I wish my other type of service provider was as good. Like that's the effect you want to have on someone from your interactions, from all the work you do, and especially in your work. Like you want to leave the most positive impression possible. So the moment your name comes up, it's an instant smile. It's wow, what a wonderful person. Or I need to call him again. Like just that you need to have that happy feeling when connected with your name, your brand, and everything
Mm.
you stand for.
D Demetri, I can't wait for next time already. I'm fascinated by your industry, and it sounds like a once in a generation opportunity to make an impact in the industry because the bar is so low.
Yeah,
So it reminds me of Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger. They say we don't try to jump over high bars. We'd rather step over low bars. It was just like it wasn't that we were so great at jumping over, like those people that are running on the track, they're jumping over these bars. No, we rather step over low bars. And so
absolutely.
I'm excited. I think it's clearly a culture matters conversation. I love the restore. Um, it was relief. So it was restore, elevate, lead by example, integrity, exude positivity, and faith. I started the company around the idea that core values right? What is culture, right? Collaboration, unique, learn, trustworthy. And so to share that with you and have you on the show be such a steward of core values in your biography, your genealogy and your example, your company. What a great way to start the morning. So I can't wait till next time already, my friend.
All right, Jay. Well, a pleasure being on your show, and look forward to next time.
Yeah, we got to shake up this service industry. And I was just say there's so much now that you've put my attention on this or refocused my attention on this, I can reflect on some scrolling that I've done uh, um and seen different pundits talking on these concepts. And a lot of it, it's truly dark energy, um, like unbridled ambition and short, short term oriented for sure.
Oh
And I
yeah,
don't think that wins in the long run. I
not
don't.
not at all. I'm all about the quality of the equipment. You know that the new equipment is aluminum based, right? With the piping and everything, and people don't they miss these details. But the second you point it out, you're like, oh, it may not be as durable. But I know what cuts through darkness, humor. If you want to see my ad before it goes out for the season. Your wife, your wife is hot, right? Buy her flowers, call cold air. 3, 2, 1, cold air, right? So this was designed by a woman. I didn't design it. So so it's woman approved. But and then in the winter, we're gonna say your wife is cold, we'll warm her up, right? That's it, right? So I'm a little edgy. I'm not over the
Hey,
edge, but
I gotta, there's so much here to unpack, but I'd say when an air conditioner doesn't work, that is a problem in Florida.
yeah.
And we will see you next time with the Culture Matters podcast.
Thank you, Jay.